Fireside Tales. Hello. I'm Merlin Mililli. Welcome to my fireside, where I tell weird tales. Fireside Tales. Stories within stories, tales within tales. I do tell stories within stories. I've been telling the story of the Grateful Dead, which is a story about reincarnation, and then telling a story about reincarnation that pertains personally to me, and then I've been ending each show with David Crosby's Deja Vu, but done in a new and different way each time so far. Hopefully I can keep that up. So stories within stories and more stories. Tales within tales. More tales. So, since I start with the story of the Grateful Dead, I'm going to start with the story of the Grateful Dead as I heard it from a deadhead by a fire. I'm a deadhead. I'm by a fire. Because I'm in California, I want to let people know that I am very safe about my fire, and I have water on the fire. Always have water nearby in case your fire spreads, especially outdoor fires. Please be careful, everybody. Smokey the Bear ain't kidding. Anywho, so I also want to talk about grounding and smudging in this lifetime. I've learned all this stuff about reincarnation and about me through my shamanic journey. And through my priestess's journey before that. This is sage. It's called a smudge stick. I highly recommend it, but I also highly recommend having water nearby if you're going to smudge. I like to smudge before I do any meditative work, and I've been talking about reincarnation and meditation. I have access meditatively to a metaphysical library, and it's not in the physical plane. I can only reach it meditatively. So it's called the Akashic Records. Other people know about the Akashic Records. It's been written about. Other people go there because every soul has a book in the Akashic Records. And if you've been reincarnated, all your lives are recorded in your book. I also want to teach you how to ground. We just smudged. You just smudge your energies without burning down the house. This is why we have the water. Just get your aura. Smudge yourself. Don't burn everything. Just be very careful smudging, especially these days. California itself is like a box of matches. So dry. Anyway, so since we're done smudging, I'm going to go ahead and put this out. We'll just stick it right in there. Let it be. And now our fire is contained to our fireplace, which is indoors and set up just for this. And it's even getting cold enough. We had a frost already. So grounding, I'm going to go ahead and take off my shoes. I advise to ground with no shoes or socks on your feet. Bare feet is best. If you can go outside and put your feet in the dirt, that's really good. Unless you don't like dirt, then that probably wouldn't be good for you. I can't get my shoe on. There we go. Cramp. Okay. Now I can get the shoe off. And we're going to ground now. I do this. This is a yogic thing. I don't know exactly why I do this, but I just am compelled to often when I'm doing grounding work. So you want to blow out all your negative thoughts and emotions with your breath. I blow out through my mouth. And then you want to breathe in positive. Think all positive thoughts, the most positive thoughts you can find, and think those. Until you can breathe out positive energy. I breathe in through my nose, I think, pretty sure. I try not to think too much about it. It works better that way. So, the story of the Grateful Dead, as I heard it from a deadhead by a fire. Once upon a time, there was a traveler. The traveler wore shoes. The traveler happened upon a little village, town, place where people were. And there was this crowd around a dead body. And people were squabbling over this dead man's body. They were arguing over his debts. They were arguing over who was going to bury him, and the traveler thought this was just petty and atrocious, and so he paid the dead man's debts, and he paid for proper burial, and he prayed over the dead man's body, and he traveled on. So many years later, the traveler, same traveler from the beginning of the story, happens upon a life or death situation where out of nowhere, some stranger just comes up and saves his life. Traveler says, "Where did you come from? Who are you? Why did you save my life? Thank you." And the stranger says, "I am the Grateful Dead." So it's a story about reincarnation. Some people are seemingly confused about exactly what reincarnation is. It's not a corpse at the end that saves him. It's a reincarnated person. It's the dead man who's now in a body, a different body, but one capable of saving the traveler's life. And so he swoops up and saves him and tells him exactly who he is. I am the Grateful Dead. I'm grateful that you paid my debts. Now I'm paying my debts. So the dead man was reborn in a baby and grew up and remembered his past life and death, apparently, and was able to repay his debt. Lucky dead guy. So, in my book, in the Akashic Records, I have taken you all back to the very first page of my big, dusty, old book. There's a theory on the spiritual plane that only those who've been murdered are reincarnated. If that's the case, then I've been murdered a lot. Because my book is big. And it doesn't seem everyone's is that way. So I'm not sure if everyone reincarnates. And I'm not sure that it's a good thing. It just is. And I've had too many dreams. The reason why I tell the story of the Grateful Dead is because I started with my last life. I started this show, Fireside Tales, telling the story of my last life just previous to this one, and how I seem to have that person's memories and dreams about that person with that person's memories as that person. And it's too weird to not be true. But I was born the day Ron Pigpen McKernan died. I was born a little baby girl from my parents. It's not a reborn thing. I didn't have, a sex change or anything like that. Ron Pigpen McKernan died in 1973, ceased to exist. His stomach separated from his esophagus. I've talked before about how I have a kink right there, which is kind of strange. Women don't usually have that. It's called a hiatal hernia. If they do, it's not usually there. I had it there before I had babies too, so it's like, that's weird, not normal. Too many weird coincidences like that, and then the dreams and the nightmares. So, as a shaman and as a druid high priestess, I did a lot of hard work to get to where I am now and what I know now. And I'm sharing that work, or an overview with it, with you. I'm not really sure why. Mainly, I think there are just a lot of misconceptions about reincarnation and what it is. And I really wanted to talk to you and try to enlighten you as to what reincarnation is. Just what it is. A lot of people just don't understand it. And it was written out of a lot of tales. Purposefully. As were women. Purposefully. And we've discovered that. I've discovered also that there is a thread that links each person that I have been to myself now and to each other person that I've been. They're all linked and they all make sense to me. And they seem to make more sense of my life. If I know and I've read my book and I know where I've been, I can figure out where I'm going. It's my logic. So that's what I'm doing. So we're sharing, and we started at the beginning. I will come back to Pigpen. We'll have a Pigpen 2 episode. Today's episode is actually a DariusII episode because there's so much more to Darius and that lifetime that no one really knows or understands. So we started in ancient Peru, and then we went to ancient Tibet, and then we went to ancient Egypt, and then we went to ancient Sumeria. That's where Darius was. And yes, I believe I was Darius, the Darius, King of Kings, Darius. He ruled over a huge swath of land in the Middle East, the whole Fertile Crescent, and all the way from India over to Egypt. It was vast, just vast. If you want to know more about each other person that I believe I've been in those regions, you'll have to watch the other episodes. I'm only giving away Pigpen today and Darius. So Darius was a king of kings, but his city, Persepolis, was sacked by the Greeks. They just burnt it down to nothing. One night, in a drunken stupor, they didn't even, I don't think they planned it. It was weird and strange, and it even goes down in history. Strange, you can look it up. It was a weird burning of a city. And the thing is, and the thing that I'd like to talk about today is that I don't think Darius died when history says he died. Firstly, something I discovered in my book in the Akasha was that the lives prior to Darius, and including Darius, all the pages are like light and dry and sandy, right? And my lives are further apart, and some of them are specifically documented, like Darius. And then, between lives, there's 1,000 years. And I've gone back in my book and I've looked and I've checked and I've double checked, and there are no more lives. I theorize that people just lived longer before the flood. Because that's what seems to be different. After Darius, there's a watermark. In my book, literally, there's a mark where all the pages prior are light and dry and sandy. There's this mark and everything below it, and after it is dark and muddy and wet. Now, historians mark the Great Flood somewhere between 2000 and 3000 BC, which means they don't know. I think, and it makes total sense now that I've sat back and thought about it a bit, that the Great Flood happened when time reset. Time didn't reset because of Jesus. Time reset because everybody was disconnected and mostly dead. Because there was a Great Flood. Because Darius lived at the end of the BC era, which is supposed to be for before Christ. In my next life, lived just at the end of BC, and it was in her life in which I think the flood happened. So we're going for straight up regular old coffee here at Fireside Tales by the fireside. Coffee in the morning by the fireside. It's a thing. And it's just milk. Just have milk. Cafe au lait. That's all that means in French. Just sounds fancy. Cafe au lait. It's coffee with milk. I am from the Northeast. I used to say coffee and dog, but I moved away at a pretty early age, so I don't say coffee and dog anymore. I seem to not be able to speak the languages of people I was in past lives. In the book, I can just read everything. It's sort of like a 3D tablet kind of thing where it comes out of the book and I see things unfold and kind of like a memory. Well, I guess it is. It's a memory. So it's vivid. It's not it's not written word. So I don't have to know a language. I'm remembering like it's my memory. Because that's what it is. It's my soul remembering. Someone kindly jotted it down somewhere, somehow, some way. Nonetheless, back to Darius. I digress. Darius, after Darius, my lives get much closer together. And he supposedly wrote the King's List, which was in a variety of languages, so it's easy to decipher. And it was the Sumerian King's List. And the one strange thing about the kings was that they seemed to be recorded as living for thousands of years. But it's funny that my book of my soul seems to have recorded the same thing. Because the last person I was also a king on the King's List, listed as having a long life of more than 1,000 years. And historians are baffled. I think that after the flood, after time reset, people started living shorter lives. Just my opinion. And what I read in my book. So, Darius. I don't think he died when the Greeks told everyone he died. I think the Greeks discovered that he was still alive and still living under his city. Underground, literally living underground, which is probably where the term came from, and probably where the Greeks got their idea for their underworld. However, I do not believe that Darius was Hades. I do believe the inspiration for the Persephone story may have been inspired by Darius, though. Because I believe he was imprisoned in his own palace, but beneath the rubble from what they burnt, beneath the palace, he lived on and was discovered by the Greeks, at which time they decided to imprison him there and keep him there for however long they were going to keep him there. Darius, being king of kings, had connections, and what I believe he did, well, I believe he went crazy down there in his little prison, for starters. I'm claustrophobic, by the way. And I think he went crazy down there, and he had some people, he had connections, like I said, because he was king of kings, and he had some people go to Greece and kidnap the princess, because he was going to use her as a bargaining tool. Somewhere in this plan, all went wrong for Darius, because I believe in that whole plot, he did actually perish. And he never got to use the princess as a bargaining tool. And all they did was use him and the story as a myth. Tell children. Warned them about going out and picking flowers in the fall. So, I want to talk a little about karma. You'll see in our next episode, next week, same time, same place, by the fireside. you'll see next week why I'm talking about karma this week. And now, in the story, karma is universal, multiversal retribution for your actions. Comes back around in whatever form the multiverse chooses, it seems. And multiverse does seem to have a bit of a sense of humor, having been Pigpen prior to this life. He sang "Good Morning Little Schoolgirl" maybe once too often. Came back as a schoolgirl. I was even a Catholic schoolgirl who had some scary guy come up and whoosh my sister's skirt at our bus stop, and we had to ride the short bus after that. I lost my Mickey thermos that day. I ran home screaming. Schoolgirls are not for adult men. Let's make that clear. And don't kidnap people for bargaining tools. That's bad. And you pay for it. As did Darius in my next life. So, another tradition I've been holding up, story within a story, as I told you, was playing David Crosby's Deja Vu. And I'm going to go ahead and do that and finish up our show for today, because I think that's about all I have to tell you. One, two, three, four. If I had ever been here before, probably know just what to do. Don't you? If I had ever been here before and another time around the wheel, I would probably know just how to deal with all of you. And I feel like I've been here before. Feel like I've been here before, and you know, it makes me wonder what's going on don't you wonder? What's going on down under you? La da da, la da da, la da da da. La da 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 da. We have all been here before. We have all been here before. Well, thanks for watching. Catch us next week.